go live button. I guess you should check the audio as well.
Did you
Hello,
fill 'em with
hello,
caviar?
hello.
All right. And we are live.
I am recording.
Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Colin.
And I'm Nathan.
We have another very special episode. We have the 1986 movie The Fly. Nathan, do you have a history with The Fly?
This was one of the first movies I watched on HBO.
Okay.
Probably in the late 80s or early 90s. That bothered me.
Oh, yeah.
I was not expecting it to be... Because it started off cool and I was into it. And then it just got gross. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. Damn it. But I didn't know who David Cronenberg was, or at least not. I didn't have an appreciation for it.
Yeah, I think I avoided it for the longest time because I heard people talk about it all the time. And it's like, well, that just sounds gross. So I don't think I'll watch that movie.
Yeah, it's as well as like, let's see, how old would I have been? 14, 13-year-old? Yeah, it was like kind of, because I didn't like The Thing the first time I watched it when I was that age either.
Yeah.
But then later on, it's like, oh, I can appreciate like the storytelling and just how completely insane this is. Yeah, so and I kind of had the same reaction this time with this because I hadn't really revisited it since then. So
I was surprised how swift the movie is. It's only like an hour and a half, and then like the movie
a
just
long movie.
starts.
just jumps right in,
which I
It's like,
appreciate.
yeah.
Well, it's like it's.
I had to watch half of this on a phone because now my movie time is curtailed.
Yeah.
Because of this stupid job. I actually have a real job, believe it or not. We don't make all our money doing this podcast. So yeah. So now my hours have changed. So I was watching it on a phone, which I know David Lynch says you're not supposed to do, and I didn't want to do it, but I've never done it before, and that was actually like, well, this is saving me time.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, no, that's. I always forget to do that. I guess it doesn't matter. I keep forgetting to put a title in a certain place in the notes. But anyways, this came out August 15th, 1986, so another summer movie.
Nope.
Of course, director is David Cronenberg, the master of body horror. So
yeah.
Which is it? Yeah, I don't know where this is. This coming off of Scanners, or have he already done Videodrome at this point?
The Videodrome was before this.
Oh, okay.
That was like 84, I believe. Let's see, Videodrome. Yeah, it was 83. This is after the Dead Zone.
Oh, okay.
It's
I've never seen that movie.
Dead Zone. That's that good movie, actually.
I've only seen the TV show.
No, the movie is pretty good. Christopher Walken's in it. It's great. Some of Christopher Walken's best acting, I think.
Christopher Walken's most acting. Yeah. Cronenberg, like I said, Scanners, Videodrome, one of my favorites. Which this is actually a lot of very Videodrome, especially when he goes off on his tyrannical tirades. It's like talking about the flesh and stuff like that. And I don't know if he's calling back to himself or it's like that's just where this takes us. Also, this was based on a previous movie. Was it 1958, The Fly?
Yes.
Which I was gonna watch, but just didn't have time to do it. Although I did read up about it, and it seems almost more screwed up than this.
It's a little weird. I remember watching it a long time ago, just to see what I thought about it. And it's like, yeah, for a late 50s, early 60s horror movie, it's pretty disturbing and weird. Like, some of those don't jump out at you. Some of them are so hokey and the acting's kind of weird. Like, that one's just disturbing.
Well, yeah, it was like a Vincent Price double feature. So it was like one of your B movies. It's like, well, we can't just sell one movie. We got to sell two. Like, that was the value put on the original Fly, which was like a French author's story that was published in Playboy.
It's more like a short story. It wasn't even a novella. It was just a short story. And I think I've read it before. Because I think the guy was irritated by the phone. He's like, telephones are too obtrusive, and this was in the mid 50s. So
Yeah. It's also weird that like this is. I know teleportation is probably a long thought of gimmick, but it's most famous for in Star Trek, and it exists here, and it even goes beyond of like being a cool transport thing. It's like, what are all the problems that can happen because of it? So,
Yes.
um,
Where did he get computers this powerful in 1986?
yeah, the computer that can think for itself. Whatever. I guess it's always funny, but whatever. I didn't know David Cronenberg was a character in Star Trek Discovery.
Oh, he is? I didn't
Yeah,
know that. Okay.
somebody named Kovic. um, yeah, because for some reason it lists his acting credits before his directing credits in his IMDb. So, um, yeah, Scanners, um, Videodrome, The Fly. Nathan says The Dead Zone.
Yeah.
At
That
least that's a
sounds
good one.
a
Dead
good one.
Ringers is super weird. That was like one of the original like Criterion collection things I rented from a library. It's like, I don't know about this, and I watched it. It was like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, that's a really oh, I don't what would I say about Dead Ringers? I don't know who's weirder, it's like
It's more of a performance thing, which is weird abortion stuff. So
yeah, it's like Jeremy Irons like one of his best like performances, but he's also like Jeremy Irons establishes himself as a creep in this. That never like he never loses that really. Um yeah, cuz he's trying to like create twins and he wants to make multi-chambered uteruses to,
yeah.
have it's like, "Oh, wow, this is really weird stuff."
I mean, it's a bit more straightforward than like Videodrome, and then
Yes, yeah, it's actually yeah.
after that you have Naked Lunch, so it's back to the complete like nonsensical.
Naked Lunch was cool. It's based off a book
Yeah.
too, so it actually makes sense if you read the book.
And then Crash, which is a great movie, but the 1996 Crash, not the Oscar-winning like 2003 Crash. That was that's
I
considered the
wonder
worst.
how many people confused those and were horrified. Like, what the hell is going on here? What does this have to do with race relations? Why are these people having an orgasm with their cars smashed together? That doesn't seem like the same thing.
That was another like I didn't know that movie existed, and I found it in the library on VHS, and I saw it, and I was like, "This is cool."
Yeah, it was cool. It was really weird.
Existence, just the weird, wrong place at the wrong time David Cronenberg movie where it's like The Matrix came out, so this seems a little quaint in comparison, but it's still
Yeah.
unto itself a good movie.
Existence is what I always called that the fleshy matrix. It's like, oh, this is the pulpy matrix.
His last kind of big one was like A History of Violence. Like that was a good
cool
movie.
one.
Also based on a comic book, which seems weird because it's like, oh, where are the superheroes? It's like, well, comic books aren't that anymore.
Yeah.
At least they don't have to be. Because I don't know, nowadays maybe they have to be. I did Eastern Promises. That was fine.
Yeah.
I always remember Eastern Promises because like, and I have respect for actors who do this. The naked shower fight scene where it's like, oh yeah, you can't put on a trench coat and hide pads underneath when you fight in the scene. Like, no, you're naked in the scene and you got to fight other naked guys and and do stunts. It's like, yeah, you can't hide that. So you got a lot of respect for that. So there's who was in that? Viggo Mortensen has a naked fight scene, and then in 50 Cent's movie he has a naked fight scene. So it's like, all right, good on you. You don't have to be a good actor, but if you do a naked fight scene, I'll I'll applaud it, I guess. um, which yeah, Jennifer Lawrence has one in her latest comedy movie, which is funny as hell.
Naked fight scene?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Weird.
Oh yeah, it comes out of nowhere. It's like, why is this in the movie? This is hilarious. It's an okay movie, but that you just need to see it for that scene alone. So, that's kind of Eastern Promise. The last one I see that of significance on his stuff. Maybe I know it's he died, right?
Who? David Cronenberg?
David Cronenberg.
No, he's still alive.
He's
He's
still
80.
alive? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
His
For
son's
some
doing
reason. Yeah.
movies
Yeah, maybe that's why I thought he died, is that his son is now doing movies.
kind of along of the same genre almost.
Yeah, I mean, they're not as much. They're more. I mean, I only seen Possessor, which is more
Yeah.
psychological than body horror, but it gets along the same lines. Which that Possessor is a really good movie, but it's very affecting because it's like, oh man, this is like all new sorts of dread. I don't like. I regret watching this movie. It's like good. It affected you.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's yeah, Possessor's not an easy film. There's no casual viewing of Possessor.
Yeah, I mean, you get to the end of that movie and it's like, this is the happy ending. It's like, oh, you learned the long lesson in life. There are no happy endings.
This is just the ending. This is just time progressing.
um,
Trying to think, the last Cronenberg movie I saw, I think, was Crimes of the Future.
oh yeah, I did not hear good things about that.
No, it's terrible.
Okay.
It's the weirdest thing. It is pure body horror.
Okay.
It's like if a movie was an acid trip with Viggo Mortensen as your guide. It seems like him and Viggo Mortensen, however you say it, they pretty much like that's his guy. That's his because David Lynch had Kyle MacLachlan and Cronenberg had Viggo Mortensen. It is the weirdest movie. I mean, like, if you like Cronenberg movies, watch it, but it's a strange one.
Cinematographer is Mark Irwin, who really kind of just is most famous for just doing Cronenberg movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're both Canadian, so they worked a lot in Canada. I mean, even this movie was shot in Canada. Of course, yeah. If you watch Scanners, that's pretty much just all Canadian. So,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
but yeah, this guy, the Mark Irwin's he's still working, but he's mostly doing like family movies and comedies. So and TV stuff. But yeah, hey, people got to eat. So,
Yeah. If you love your work, you never work a day in your life.
yeah, he did a lot of the Cronenberg movies. He did RoboCop 2, which is an interesting mess of a movie.
Yeah, I like that movie.
What? No, that's not the one I want. D2 Mighty Ducks. New Nightmare. Where is he? I did Dumb and Dumber. Kingpin. Okay, so he worked with the Farrelly brothers quite a bit. Scream. That's a big one.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a good-looking movie too. So.
Yeah, and there's something about Mary. 10 Things I Hate About You. Road Trip. Yeah, so he just got into comedies and doing children's movies. So it's like, oh, good on you. Although weirdly, he's a director of photography on Flight 93, which is the TV movie of the flight, not the good one by Paul Greengrass.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Because I saw that, I was like, oh wow, he did that one. That's kind of a movie you never want to watch, but it's actually really good. And then it's like, oh no, this is the TV version of it. Okay, never mind. I guess could still be good, but I'd never seen it. So, written by Charles Edward Pogue and David Cronenberg. So that's separately because it's got the and. I don't know who Charles Edward Pogue is. He did Dragonheart and Psycho 3. So
a lot of his credits come up as plays too, and as a writer. So he's like a stage thing.
I was gonna guess he was a Canadian guy, but it says he's born in Cincinnati. So.
And he went to the University of Kentucky.
And then David Cronenberg also co-wrote it, and then George Langolin, he's the one who wrote the short story that this is based on.
Yes, he's a French and British guy.
Oh, okay.
At once. I don't know. Sounds cool.
The cast is Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis, and John Getz. A very, very small cast.
Yeah.
But
very
again,
small cast for a movie that just hits the gas and never really stops.
Yeah, I don't know where they were in the careers now, because I know there's a lot of weird stuff that Jeff Goldblum was doing around this time. I don't know if he was a big name. I feel like Jeff Goldblum's kind of like this, and then suddenly Jurassic Park, and then he's just been weird for the last 30 years.
Well, let's see. He did Buckaroo Banzai
Okay, yeah.
in 1984, and he was an extra. Or what was his role in The Right Stuff? He was it was like a single role. He was in The Big Chill. So yeah, he wasn't.
I remember wasn't he like one of the gangsters in one of the Death Wish movies?
Yeah, he was in the original Death Wish in 1974. He was credited as a freak. He was the one who was like, "God damn rich cunt." That was him. And I know that because that was a famous like O&A drop for years.
Oh, okay.
Like, what's that from? And then you find out, like, oh, okay.
And then, yeah, I don't know if because Gina Davis just pops up for me as like the League of Their Own, so I don't know like where she was at this time, what she was doing.
She was dating Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
I think they were married after this.
Huh.
And they stayed married for, I don't know, 87 to 91.
Yeah, until she married Rennie Harlan, and they made one good movie together, and then ruined their careers together.
Yeah, their careers died together.
I mean, Rennie Harlan, I know, it's hard to say he ever made a good movie. Some of them are entertaining. It's hard to call them good.
Yeah.
Because I remember when people were like, man, Die Hard 2, that's great. I'm like, it's the worst Die Hard. Well, except until you get to the fifth one. That's the actual worst one. But anyway.
Yeah.
When you look at 1 and 3, which are directed by John McTiernan, and then like you have 2 there, it's like, see, there's clearly a quality difference between these. But I mean, 2 is still a fun movie, so. But yeah, but they did a Long Kiss Goodnight, which I love that movie. But it's also
a good one.
It's very stupid, but it's got a great cast.
Die screaming.
But then they made Cut Through Island together, and that pretty much sunk their career. It's
like, that was the one that like
it's like a mid-90s movie that cost like $160 million, and like didn't it like bankrupt a studio?
$8 million. Wow, holy crap! I'm sure someone went to prison over that one. Yeah, it killed Carolco Pictures.
Oh, Carolco. Okay, yeah. They put out. Yeah, we did. They put out Extreme Prejudice, which is the movies that we did, and I believe they also put out like the Terminator movies.
Yeah, they did a lot of stuff. You recognize because it's got that unique symbol where it's just like the C, but it looks like a maze. Yeah.
And John Getz, who I'm guessing is just some Canadian guy because I don't recognize him from anything.
Actually, Davenport, Iowa guy.
Huh. Okay.
He was on the soap opera Another World.
Okay.
In the 70s. He basically was. I thought it was almost. What's the guy's name from Three's Company? That's who he kind of looks
John
like
Ritter?
in this movie. Yeah, they make him look like John Ritter in this movie for some reason.
Oh, is he the guy in Blood Simple that's crawling on the ground bleeding?
I don't know. Let's see. He was in The Fly 2. Yes, Blood Simple, Ray. It's his third movie.
And then he's just like randomly in 2 Cronenberg movies. Or not Cronenberg. Fincher.
Yeah.
He has a part in Social Network and one in Zodiac. Which I'm guessing he probably has more Fincher movies to his name, but those are the ones that are listed up top here. Oh yeah, he's got 141 credits to his name. Okay, he's a working actor. Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily call him a character actor, but he gets work, so.
He's like the third guy. It's a non-existent love triangle that someone thinks.
Oh yeah, so that's all. Yeah, so we'll get to Act 1. So let me get back to my notes. Yeah, we can mention them. I forget the effect. Did the effects guy? Was that the guy from Scanners working here for the effects, or did they get a different guy for this? Because I remember you had like some good stories when we did Scanners on a different podcast about how they had to do that, like putting shotgun shells and like Jello molds and stuff, and like we got one shot to do this or whatever.
Let's see. Chris Wallace did this. and he did stuff in Airplane.
Oh yeah.
The Enemy Mine was his big thing.
Okay.
He was not involved in
Oh yeah,
any.
he directed this Fly too. That's right.
Yeah,
Which I've never seen. Have you seen it?
yeah, I watched it once. It's terrible.
Okay.
I can't believe. He also did Naked Lunch,
Oh, the
and
effects. Okay. Okay.
yeah, the effects, and um, yeah, and that was about it. He's a Chicago guy.
Okay. All these people, I'm just assuming are Canadian, but they're apparently just all from the Midwest. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure where this was shot. It looks like Chicago, so
Pretty.
it's probably Vancouver or
Yeah.
Toronto.
No,
They
I'm
did a
pretty
lot of
sure we.
shooting in Toronto at one time too.
Yeah, I was pretty sure it was shot in Canada because I thought I saw that in the trivia, but I looked past it. Who knows?
Yep, Toronto.
Okay.
Yep. They used to shoot a lot in Toronto. Now they don't. Now they go to the most beautiful city in the world, Vancouver.
Yeah.
It's like the city. What did you say? It was like the city of models,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
men and women. It's just every Canadian who
Well,
has any acting chops. It's
well,
like,
also like if there's any sci-fi show on television, it's shot in Vancouver. And then the thing about sci-fi shows is they usually have very diverse casts. So it's like the most beautiful people from all around the world have
oh,
descended upon Vancouver.
the most expensive city in Canada, one of the most expensive cities in North America to live in.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense.
Um,
However, not as expensive as San Francisco, uh, parts of New York. They list different cities.
yeah.
But I guess it's also Vancouver's going to sink. It's like they're having a big problem because it's like a bunch of islands. It's like, oh wow, that's
Okay.
sad.
Yeah.
Too bad. Oh, well, they got other land.
The New
Canada's
Orleans of the
mostly,
North.
yeah, Canada's mostly uninhabited. You just move somewhere
Well,
else.
like how far is like an hour drive from Seattle, or how far
Yeah,
is? Okay.
I think. No, 23 minutes. Okay.
Oh,
Wow.
it's even less. Okay, that's okay.
Well, I don't know if that's like Seattle proper or like
Oh,
the
okay.
suburbs.
Yeah.
I'm just going off a little map here. But,
So we act one. It opens on a blurry shot of a crowd, which I was like, this is a crowd, right? And then I was like, then I was at first I was unsure. It's like, well, it's called The Fly. Is this some weird like petri dish or something going on here? But no, it's just a crowd of people, and they just kind of do weird effects, like the people are neon and stuff like that. But then it gets more focused, and you see like, yeah, it's just blobs of people, but they're all neon. It like unfocuses and focuses back in. It's like they're at a museum or something. And we just get right to it. Jeff Goldblum, Seth Brundle, is talking to Gina Davis, Veronica Quaife. And then he's talking
that's an
about
unfortunate name.
or is that supposed to be Quaff?
I'm not sure. But I just think of like Terrence and Philip's girlfriends when I hear the name. I'm like, that's a weird that you guys came up with this name for the character.
They're talking about science and like how it's going to change the world, and of course she doesn't believe him because she thinks he's just hitting on him, which he is, but he's completely serious.
Yeah.
It's like it can be both. He's a very efficient guy. So. He ends up inviting her to his lab, which just seems immediately creepy, and he's like promising cappuccino as like an innocent gift, I guess, or whatever. And then she just walks away from him because he's weird. So they're kind of just letting Jeff Goldblum be Jeff Goldblum here. I don't know how much is written or how much was him improvising. It feels like a lot of it's improvised, but
I think this movie is when Jeff Goldblum establishes Jeff Goldblum as Jeff Goldblum. This is what he is from now on.
Yeah.
Because every performance after, because I mean, he was always sort of like that, but like when he was like the ex, I think he played, what was the guy in Buckaroo Banzai? He was called New Jersey or something.
Yeah.
He had a name, and he was kind
he was
of
the
like
cowboy from New Jersey, and they call him
yeah.
because they gave him the cowboy outfit, and he was like, "Why did you give me this?" It's like because you're from New Jersey or something like that. Or what? Wasn't he not even from New Jersey? Wasn't he from like New York, and they just called him New Jersey? It was something complicated. I can't remember. So.
All right, I thought he was from Cincinnati. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But there he was trying to act like a kind of a character, but still obviously Jeff Goldblum. Now in The Fly, he is just fully embrace, because if you watch this movie and then watch, Thor Ragnarok, where he's also a big character, he's the same guy.
Yeah.
He's doing the
Or
same kind of stuff almost.
or one of those like hotels.com or whatever commercials or
The
realty.com
apartment
commercial.
finders, yeah.
Yeah. Where he's just being himself, being weird, and it's like that must be a gig where they just call you in and they're just like, "Hey, be yourself, and here's $40 million."
Yeah, you don't even have to act anymore. You're just doing a Super Bowl commercial once a year for $20 million. It's like, hey, sounds good to me.
Yeah, how about a
Let's all be
document?
weird and vaguely sexy.
I want like a documentary about the flow from progressive chick where it's like she has to be making lots of money for what is like has to be like the shortest work, but it's like now it's your life's work.
Yeah. You'll be forever known as this. Oh no, that's sad. It's like then you see your house and it's like, oh yeah, she's doing all right.
Because yeah, usually it's like struggling actors get like commercial work and then they make their way to like television and sometimes features, especially if you're like a quirky comedic actor like that. But now it's like, no, you can make your career selling insurance,
Yeah.
being a quirky character on TV for 30 seconds at a time.
Well, yeah, the insurance commercial odyssey that has been created the last 20 years where you have cavemen, geckos,
And
the
those are all the same
Liberty,
company.
the Liberty,
Oh, the emu, yeah, Liberty
yeah,
emu or something.
emu, and then the guy with the mustache, and there's all kinds of other stuff.
There's the animated one with John Krasinski.
Which one's that?
I think that's Progressive Insurance. No, no, not Progressive. What is it? I forget. There's one. It's all animated and it has John Krasinski as a voice and some lady who's like a pink superhero or something.
Okay, and then you have the guy from Oz.
Esurance. That's what it
Oh,
is.
Esurance. Okay, yeah, they're not around anymore.
Okay.
I think Allstate bought them. Yeah, they were
All,
supposed to.
yeah, Allstate has Arnold Schwarzenegger doing commercials.
And then you've got the guy from Oz, who's Mr. Mayhem.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and those people they're just banking money.
Which I feel
I
good
mean,
for him. Did you hear like the horrible thing that happened to that guy? He got like
yes,
gangrene and had to like have like some toes amputated and stuff like that. And
I know he was in massive nerve pain for a long time from that too.
yeah,
Like his nervous system, something happened to him, and so he was like just in massive pain with no there wasn't a sword sticking out of him or anything. It's just his nerves were freaking out. I think they figured that out. But yeah, I remember I heard that and I was like, that's horrible. It's like, what are you doing today? Well, I'm in massive pain. Oh, how can you help? You can't. My nervous system is attacking me for whatever reason. I don't know if that's exactly it, but it sounded something like that.
But Veronica, who like I think later he just starts calling her Ronnie, but I'm just gonna call her Veronica throughout my notes.
Yeah,
Although Ronnie is a fun name for Veronica, so
it is. And you can imagine Jeff Goldblum saying that.
She claims she has like more interviews to do, and then he says like one more last thing, and then then we cut to her like Veronica's driving Seth to his lab.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, he comes up and he says like, so yeah, everybody here has like the next big adventure. He's like, yeah, but they're all lying. I'm not, and somehow that convinces her. So. And also, like, I guess we're supposed to believe that he doesn't know she's a journalist at this point. He's just like infatuated with her.
Well, no, I think she knows. He knows she's a journalist because he's like offering her exclusivity.
Okay.
It's like, bring your equipment, bring yourself, and whatever you need, and I'm going to show you something that, like, I'm show you the real thing. So yeah, he is hitting on her, but he also is like, I actually have something to show her too.
But he gets weirded out when he's like, "Oh, you're taping this. I don't want that.
Yeah,
we can't show the world yet." So yeah, Veronica drives Seth to his lab. He apparently has motion sickness, so he's like, apparently just walks everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know how he got to this museum or whatever, but he got there somehow.
Yeah, it seemed like it's like we must establish something about the character.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, if you got motion sickness, what would you do? Take, that pill or the stuff that cancels motion sickness, or invent an a dematerialization, rematerialization device with horrible side effects. It's like, I'm going to go for option 2 because I'm a genius.
um, yeah, which is hilarious. It's like, hey, that's like I need to solve this problem. It's like that's the worst way to solve your problem. Yeah, what is that stuff? Diazepam?
Yes.
Okay.
It's motion sickness. It basically does something with your center of balance in your head.
You can also take ginger root.
Oh, okay.
That helps. Cause I would sometimes, if I like back in the 3DS days and someone else was driving, I could get motion sickness playing a video game while in a driving seat or while being driven somewhere.
Okay.
And sometimes and reading while in motion, that sometimes that strikes me as weird. So yeah, I generally don't read in the car if I'm being driven somewhere. Although I am rarely being driven somewhere anymore, so now it's audiobooks and podcasts for me.
Yeah, I'm mostly listening when I'm going somewhere.
They pull up to like I don't know an abandoned industrial park / like residence or something.
Yeah, it's one of those like it's like that. You always see those in movies. I don't know if they really exist. It seemed like a cool idea though.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like this would be the perfect place for a what do you call those freight elevator, but tragically that doesn't exist for this apartment.
Nope.
Which becomes a thing later on. So, he lets her in a lab. He starts playing piano for like no reason. Well, I guess it's to impress her. And then she's like, "Is this what you brought me here for?" And he's like,
I've seen
"No."
a piano before. They've been invented a long time ago.
And then you immediately see the two weird like capsules in the background that he's just kind of ignoring at the moment. And also she doesn't care either. It's like, oh, he created like boutique telephone booths. But he created a telepod, so it's got the tele in there. So
Yeah.
Which the design of this is kind of interesting because the cover for this very much mirrors the cover for the Alien movies.
Yeah, it does.
It's got the same green and kind of crack and egg shape going on here. Because I remember like I'd see friends like VHS collections and these were kind of like near each other and like, wow, are these the same movie? It's like, no, this one's Alien and this one's The Fly. It's like, oh, okay. Are they horror movies?
Kind of about body horror.
Yeah. They're about a life cycle by a hybrid creature. So Seth turns on the telepod invention thing. Seth asks her for like something personal, but she doesn't have any like jewelry or anything, so she undoes a stocking and hands it to him. But sure, they play it up like kind of have it be like all sexy and stuff. It's like I was like, is he gonna hand her? Is she gonna hand him her panties? It's like no.
I thought when I was watching, I was like, wait, does she give him her panties? No, she doesn't. It was like, oh, that's weird.
But still, obviously sexual. So
yeah.
So he opens up the pod and he tosses the stocking in. He has a voice passcode on his machine computer, which is like, man, that shit don't even work today. So,
yeah, I was gonna say that stuff doesn't work now. 36 years ago.
But it's a good setup to a later thing where it's like,
yeah,
why it doesn't work anymore. He whispers into it like, and I only know this because the subtitles were on, where he says activate teleportation sequence. So if I didn't have the subtitles on, I would not know what he said.
It almost seemed like a recording like ADR problem or something. Yeah. Very weird.
And then special effects happen to the stocking, and then she just assumes he just like fried it like it's a microwave. Which was interesting. Like the special effects here aren't really that different from the 1958 ones.
No, they're actually kind of similar. They're done a different way, but yeah, kind of the same thing.
They walk over to the other pod and they find the stocking in there, and so he talks about how it was disintegrated there and reintegrated there or here. So, and she's just like, "Oh, this is a magic trick. That's stupid." So,
Yeah, that's I like that she was like, "Oh, are you like a magician? Or are you like oh, did she
con
say
man.
something?" Yeah, yeah.
Well, actually, at this point, well, I know she's in disbelief at first, and then when she realizes that it actually happened, now she's suddenly interested in the project. And this is when she starts recording the conversation, which this freaks Seth out because he's like, "No, I want to keep this private. I just wanted you to like me for making an invention." um, but then like Veronica runs off to write about this presumably, which what? Yeah, she's an author or she's a journalist for Particle magazine, which seems like the most niche magazine to ever exist.
I think it was supposed to be a run up on Science magazine,
Yeah.
but yeah, it seemed like a very even back in the glory days of magazines, it's like, is there that niche an audience where you can like multiple people can have a job writing an article? But I guess it's establishing she's like a science technical writer.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, this is a magazine. This isn't like a scientific journal or anything like that. No, they're putting these out presumably monthly, and they're going off the shelves. So.
Yeah.
Um,
When's
back when
Particle coming out?
back when you would give somebody a month lead time to write a story and it'd be amazing. Nowadays,
Yeah.
it's like you got 13 seconds to be the first one to say something.
Or you're typing it into some kind of, you know, I'm not going to call it an AI. Let's call it a writing difference engine.
Yeah.
You're putting it in there, and then that's becoming news.
Well, I mean, yeah, they do have AI just writing headlines and news sometimes. But no, the crazy thing is like the Mad Lib shit, where it's just like people will just create a document about like their imagination of like what terrible thing could happen. And they just kind of like leave some of it blank and write the rest. And then if that terrible thing happens, they enter in the credentials and hit go because they need to be the first one to print.
Yeah, it's just a plug-in. Yeah. Did you hear Vice let all its staff go?
Oh,
Or
they did
most
that.
of them?
Yeah, they did that a while ago. I mean, well, maybe they did for. I know
Well, they
they.
just did it yesterday. I think it was like it's the last bunch.
Well, I know they. I know they let off. So they had like their video game wing called what was it, Waypoint,
Okay.
and so they let them go like almost a year ago. And but weirdly enough, they were able to. They essentially bought themselves. They kept together the team together, and they bought themselves from Vice, and they just
Oh,
had to rename it Remap Radio.
okay.
And so, but like all the subscribers they had, this is the fucked up thing, is they had a subscriber thing, which Vice didn't know how to set up, so they just set it up themselves. And so that's why this thing came about. It's like, hey, you're about to nuke this thing that has a subscriber base that's feeding itself. This can't be profitable for Vice, but it's profitable for us. It's like, can we keep these people? And so they just had to rename it and do some weird stuff. And so they got to keep their subscription model and they just had to rename themselves. But they get the rights to all the old podcasts they'd film and all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
And then Vice was just divested of it. But also they needed to do that because Vice didn't pay them their severance and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because yeah, all the people that work for Vice were in some sort of writers union, like they're part of
Oh,
like they're part of like one of the writers guild. So of course all that got nuked. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
um, so yeah, that's what I know about Vice. I knew they fired one of their wings and a bunch of people a long time ago. So I didn't know it was even existed at all at this point. Although I do, they're still putting out that wrestling, or what is it? What's the dark wrestling documentary show?
Outside the ring, or
Yeah.
yeah,
They're still putting
yeah.
that
It's
out.
weird because I hear about because I still see there's some of their stuff on YouTube that comes up, like this documentary about something weird, and then I hear like for years I've heard that they're just winnowing down and down and down, and then I heard they just basically vaporize, and it's like,
Yeah.
huh, that's sad. I remember that used to be kind of weird and cool.
Yeah.
But then they got rid of the guy who started it, and I think it just slowly was downhill from then. So,
Well, I mean, it's well, from what I know from the remat people, the way they talked about it is that like nobody at the top knew what anybody was doing.
that sounds like a good way to run things.
So even though like, even like, so like like one of the reasons they got to keep doing what they wanted to is because nobody knew they existed and their spreadsheet was in the black. So, but it wasn't that far in the black that anybody gave stuff. But like, there's one time they popped up on like the major company's radar because they like did a charity stream where they like ended up donating like I don't know something like $800,000 to charity. And they're
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, shit! What's going on over there?" I need it. You worry. Can you get us $800,000? Like, no, this is for charity.
Not tax free.
um. But yeah. So yeah, more death of journalism. That's really just the death of what do you call that? Consumer advocacy, or what do you call that? Or what's that called? Or basically you're rating something for people to see whether it's good or not.
Oh yeah, like consumer. Yeah,
Consumer journalism. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I think there's a fancy name somewhere in my mind for it, but I forget what it's called. There's another thing I heard is like enthusiast press.
Huh.
That's another term.
That's a good one.
That's usually get associated with like video game journalism because it's like I like video games, I'm gonna write about it, and like it's like you should probably be more critical. It's like you're not a journalist. It's like, well, no, I'm not a journalist because I like video games, so I guess I'm enthusiast press. Which I guess we're sort of enthusiast press.
Yeah, I mean that could be. Yeah, we're film enthusiasts.
And then we cut to Veronica. She's at the office and she's talking to her boss, and she lets him listen to the tape. And we're basically Seth is saying like he hires geniuses to like make parts. Like he says he's not a genius, but like he's like, yeah, I find guys who can make lasers and stuff, and I just kind of put them together. And he says his financiers like leave him alone because he's cheap, and it's like I don't know any of that shit is cheap, but okay.
Yeah, that doesn't look cheap, especially for like '80s tech. That looks very expensive.
You got a whole building yourself. I don't know the power like output or the power it takes to power that.
What does it take to disintegrate something and then put it back together?
Here's where the boss says she's being conned. So that's he's just doing a wizard's trick. What is it called? Like the two dresser like trick or something like that.
Yeah,
Kind of like the thing from the Prestige, basically that.
except it's not. Yeah, except in the Prestige, it was actually happening. No, what was the Prestige? It was creating a duplicate, and the one had to drown. It's like that's nice and dark.
Prestige, great movie. Maybe
Oh yeah, it's an amazing movie.
I gotta see what year that was in. We might be putting that in one of the years. The boss gets a call. And it's Seth is there at the magazine. It's Particle Magazine. He walks in there, and then Seth realizes that they don't take him seriously. So he's like, "Cool, that's what I want." Well, he wants to be taken seriously at the time of his choosing, but otherwise, he wants to remain anonymous while he does his terrible work. So.
Yeah.
He invites Veronica to burgers, but apparently bad burgers. so they're eating burgers. Here he explains that the trouble he has with his machine is that it can only teleport inanimate objects. And she says, like, what does it do to like animate object or well, I can't remember what she says. He's like, you don't want to know we're eating. We'll get to that eventually. So
We'll find out.
So basically, here's where he's trying to like bargain with Veronica. He's like, no, I want you to write a book. So like, I want you to hold off on publishing about this now. I want you to fill out the whole book, and then when everything's ready to go, you can put out the book. which I guess she seems interested in. So, especially being that her boss is like doesn't take him seriously, so she's like kind of going all in on this. But also, there's a thing with the boss where you'll find out later that they're like they're exes, and so there's that weirdness going on there. Also, apparently, she used to be her professor, which that's extra weird. So,
Yeah, it sounds like that would be like considered inappropriate nowadays.
oh, it had to be inappropriate then. It was just more acceptable, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this young lady, being finding a future husband for herself. She's doing well. It's like where nowadays it's like, well, shouldn't she be like working on her career and having her own hopes and dreams? Like, no, she's got to put a baby out. So
Yeah.
this is Reagan's Canada. So.
It's just a portal through which children pass.
Here he kind of tells like his plan that like the book's gonna end with him teleporting himself. So she kind of seems interested in that, I guess. Well, until she, she'll learn.
Yeah.
So that being in Act 1. Act 2, Veronica gets home and hears somebody in her house. I wrote it's some guy, but like, wait, is that the boss? And yeah, it's her boss. So he's just like showering in her house. Which I didn't know if it was like he had a wife somewhere and this is like his side thing, but like no, they're just like on again.
Yeah,
off
I didn't
again
understand
relationship.
that either at first. Like, oh, is he gotta have a secret shower here? He's, just controlling.
They're looking at the script and it's like, where does he live? It's like, doesn't matter. Just have him stay at her house. We're gonna save one set here. Because this wasn't a horribly expensive movie to make, but so. Yeah. His name's Stathis, which hopefully I remember that because that's a weird ass name.
That is a strange name.
But yeah, so Stathis looked up Seth and like knows who he is. He's like he was on Project F-240 or something like that, which I'm not even sure what I can't remember what they did. Do you recall what he said that like he was working on that project?
I forget. Yeah, what was that?
But yeah, he just says like that they're like this close to the Nobel Prize, so it's like okay, he's actually somebody. Then we cut back to the lab. Seth is like punching in some code and running a trial with a baboon. Veronica has a video camera, so they're like documenting it. Which I don't know if that was just like to go later in the book or if they're just going to make a documentary. Because it seems like at this point you would just put out the documentary. So
Right, yeah. Seems like.
but it is being shot on video camera, so wouldn't look that great. So I don't know. The baboon disappears and it shows up in the other pod as just a bloody mess. It's like it's been turned inside out, which he says later. Then we cut to Seth is like talking to the camera reluctantly. He says the baboon must have been turned inside out. Where here she's trying to get him to like basically, hey, what's in your head? And he's like, well, everything's fucked. That's what's in my head. But here he's kind of mentions like with a mistake here is that he says computers are stupid and they only do what you tell them to, and so he has to know how to talk to the computer, which is very true. Like computers are the ultimate the ultimate autism machines. Like there's no like there's no second meaning, there's no interpretation. They only do exactly what you tell them to do. So
Yeah, there's only what would you say? Yeah, they're very good at detail. They're very poor at nuance.
yeah, and completely literal.
Yes.
But so yeah, he says like he says he thinks like, oh, I'm the problem. I need to tell the computer how to handle flesh because he says that's what that has the problem with. Seth is laying down in his couch bed thing when he's like distraught. Veronica flirts with him and they start making out. And then we like fade into moments later where they're kissing naked in bed after sex. Seth like rolls onto like a computer chip and then like slightly stabs him. I don't know if this has any deeper meaning. It's just we need a wound so we can look at it. We can analyze it over the course of the movie. So
Yeah, I think that was actually the only reason, just to establish that.
Yeah, and he's sort of messy. Just leave a computer. How much does that computer chip cost? probably 50 cents, which for a computer sense is incredibly expensive. Um, she talks. Veronica talks about like grandmas grabbing like the cheeks of babies, and when she says that, that inspires him to put steak in the telepod. So he cuts the steak in half, puts one through the telepod, and then he cooks them up, and then he has her try them both to like A/B test, and he's like, yeah, this one tastes fine, because like it doesn't like he does anything special to cook it up. He just throws it in a pan with some butter or whatever. So it doesn't even look that good. No sear on it, nothing. It's just steak. um, and then she tries the other one. She's like, yeah, that tastes funny, and she says it tastes synthetic. And this is where he figures out that the machine is synthetically producing flesh because it doesn't know any better. Um, and then we cut to Veronica leaves the lab and she's being followed by Stathis, and he confronts her at like some store for like lying to him. This is weird. He's like, I mean, this is like the moment where it's like, he's the villain of the movie, and he makes him jealous and unreasonable. But they gotta turn that around a bit. So then we come back to the lab. We have another baboon teleportation, except this one is successful. They pop. Oh yeah, Veronica's there too. It's just sometime later. They pop champagne over the success. Seth talks about sending the baboon in for tests to make sure it's really okay, and so he's like, basically, like, we're gonna take a couple of weeks off, and while we get the test results come in, and Veronica's talking about taking a vacation while they're running the tests. Then Veronica, like, there's some mail for her at the lab. It was like slid under the door, and it's from Stathis, and so they're gonna run an article on Seth about teleportation. So then Veronica doesn't tell him what's wrong. He just knows something wrong, and so she heads out to go handle the situation. But she doesn't tell him what he's doing. Then we cut to the creepy glass building at night, which is their publication office or whatever. Veronica confronts Stathis. She wants to put the story on hold. Stathis agrees to hold back, and then he asks for casual sex.
Yeah.
It's super weird. She's like, "No, you creep," but still kind of like in a yes way. I don't know. It's like maybe. Their triangle is the weirdest love triangle in all of movie history.
Yeah.
Then we cut to Seth's at the lab talking to himself in front of the baboon. He's like getting drunk, and he's like putting together like the Veronica and Stathis situation, and he's like, "Oh, they're getting back together? Are they apart? Like, she cheating on me? Like, are we a couple?" So, and then we also see a fly buzzing around the baboon, and so Seth decides drunkenly to go teleport himself. So he sets up the camera to record it for Veronica. He gets naked in the pod, and then you see they focus in on the window, and you see that the fly is in there with him. So yeah, he gets teleported. He gets destroyed on a molecular level and reassembled in the other machines. Seemingly okay. The baboon jumps up to him and he hugs him. Which I don't know if I never really did the AB here. Did Jeff Goldblum get into like extra shape when he comes out like this part of the movie, or is he kind of like always that shape the entire movie?
I think they shot him differently.
Okay.
They might have done something to make him look like his face seemed darker and more angular. It was probably makeup, I'm guessing.
Well, I'm just not sure if they just like had him with shirts on, and now they just have him with shirts off here, or if he's had like his shirt off the entire movie, but now he just looks slightly more buffer here. So, I mean, really, he's just kind of got like, abs and stuff like that. It's not like he looks like Sylvester Stallone or anything, but
yeah, it seems like he's in shape.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly. Yeah, he's unaware of the whole fly intervention. Then we cut to Veronica shows up and sits down next to Seth. Yeah, he's laying down in bed. He wakes up. He tells her he went through himself, and she's like worried, like, you could have killed yourself. And he asks her if she's like sleeping with Stathis, and this is where she explains that like he was her teacher in college, and apparently they moved to publication together. I don't know. Their relationship's weird, so whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be very. Yeah.
But then Seth and Veronica kiss, and then they focus on his. The camera focuses on his wound. It has like hair growing out of it, so it's a concern for later. They're sleeping next to each other, and like there's a fly like flying around, and Seth like grabs it in his sleep, and so he gets up to like follow his curiosity, and then Vrana wakes up and kind of like worry, and then Seth starts doing gymnastics in the lab.
Yeah.
So, which I'm pretty sure this is a stunt double. I don't know. I don't look it up. It seems
It's
shot in
just
a
fun.
way that
Yeah.
obscure. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Jeff Goldblum to do this stuff. I'm just pretty sure he did it. um, I like the bit where he's like swinging around, and like he like runs along the top of the ceiling. um, yeah, I wish I could do any of that stuff. Like the what do they call those?
Parkour.
No, but I mean that's kind of it. But like the muscle ups, that's it. Where you go from a pull up and you pull up yourself so fast that then you're like up above the bar and like kind of doing dips off the bar.
Oh, okay. Like real gymnast type stuff.
Yeah. Um. But yeah, Veronica gets turned on and worried by this, so I guess rightfully so. I don't know. So then they cut to they're like shopping at a market or something. He gets her like a heart necklace, which I guess is supposed to be, I don't know, something special because it's mentioned early on that she doesn't wear jewelry, so this is supposed to be special. Although I don't think this heart necklace ever comes into play in the rest of the movie. So
No, it doesn't seem to be a thing.
uh and so we cut to there at a coffee shop, and Seth is just dumping spoonfuls of sugar into his coffee, which is already like, I don't know, was that a cappuccino or something? It has like foam on top. I don't know coffee, so
Yeah, it's something probably fairly sugary.
yeah, to begin with, yeah. Uh, so he's like, so he's starting to think that that maybe his teleportation is like improving his human form. That like he was reassembled on molecular level, but like to be better. So he's like all like oh, this is like humanity's step forward. I found it. um.
Look, I'm holding a dog and it's not trying to bite me. I have no I'm thinking in five different directions right now. So. Her head is curiously round.
Oh, okay.
No, she just wanted to come see me.
um, Veronica and Seth have sex in front of the telepod. They've apparently been having sex for hours, and so
Yeah,
she
seems like quite the session. Yeah.
and she asked to stop, which is I don't know. That's always a thing in a movie. It's like, oh, the woman needs to stop and take a rest. Like, um, and then Veronica notices like the hairs growing out of his wounds even more, and she says they're like really coarse, and so she cuts the hair while he's like trying to eat a bucket of ice cream. um, then he's suddenly struck with the desire to put Veronica through the telepod, and obviously she doesn't want to go through. Uh, so then he goes off in his whole rant about like, yeah, I call it here his flesh junkie tirade.
Yeah.
You know, he starts talking about like I don't even know, it's something of the flesh. It's very Videodrome. It's very just Cronenberg in general. So I imagine it had to have been written by Cronenberg.
Yes, delivered by Goldblum.
Yeah.
I'm purified. I'm something new, something better. You know, it's just that kind of talk.
Yeah, my instinct is to call him like say this is like his Ozymandias speech, but I actually don't even know what that means. I'm vaguely aware of that being like Ozymandias is like the god king or whatever, and is higher than thou or some stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. When I hear that, I think of the Watchmen.
Yeah. I mean, that's where they get it from.
Yeah. Ozymandias was a Greek name for the pharaoh Ramses II.
Oh, okay.
So what does the I am Ozymandias speech come from? Not important. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Seth walks into.
I could read Wikipedia on my podcast.
Seth walks into a bar looking for a teleporter volunteer. He catches the eye of like a lady at the bar who's watching two guys arm wrestle. Yeah, I don't know where this. I don't know where this fits into the over the top, but this is probably the other famous arm wrestling of the 80s.
Yes.
I don't know. Arm wrestling was a big thing in the '80s, where it was just how you proved how strong you were.
Right. Yeah.
Which now, like, arm wrestling is super advanced and weird. You got people that look like they aren't bodybuilders at all, but they're still like fit, and then they just have like crazy ligament strength or something like that. And you got people with just like super developed like forearms and like probably birth defects who like just take advantage of the situation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Someone who has like has the ligature, the underlying strength and connecting tissue of like a chimpanzee for
yeah.
some reason. Like they're just pound for pound, they're twice as strong as a normal human. They'll live to be like 35 and their heart will explode. It's just so much to maintain that.
Well, I mean, they're not that big because it's always funny when like they have like a professional arm wrestler versus like a bodybuilder, and they just destroy the bodybuilder because it's like
Oh yeah. Yeah.
bodybuilders aren't built for that. You know, they make their muscles bigger. They don't necessarily make them more functional.
I've known people that work on farms that literally ate like 5,000 calories a day and probably could break somebody's neck with their hands like normal people, but they're not normal people because
Yeah,
they have such massive. They usually have very giant hand. Their hands are like disproportionately large for their body. I
yeah.
don't know if that's a genetic thing or they just got larger from being used all the time. But yeah, I know guys that like will eat 12 pancakes and like throw hay and probably like crush a neck like Darth Vader, like one handed. But you wouldn't know it because they just look like normal people.
Yeah.
But then you realize like they're like doing insane amounts of physical work all the time.
There's like that. I don't know if he's a TikTok guy or something, but is this guy? He has this routine where he'll like pretend to be like a foreign janitor in a gym, and they'll be like, some guy will be like, um, oh, what's that? Deadlifting like 300 pounds or something, and like struggling with it, and he's like a big guy, and this guy will come over and like lift it up with one hand so he can sweep the mop underneath where the weights were. and it's not him like it's not a magic trick. He didn't like swap out the weights, or the weights were never. He can just do that.
Yeah, he's just strong enough, and he knows how to right where the balance point is, where he
Yeah.
can grab it that way.
But like you and me would struggle to like use our entire body to lift it.
Oh, if we were on either side of the damn thing, working together, we couldn't pick it up. But yeah, this guy's one hand in it. Yeah.
And he's just like skinny. He doesn't look like any kind of bodybuilder or anything. But he's got super lean muscle or whatever. So let's see here. So yeah. Seth is kind of his eye catches the lady at the bar. He's now got like kind of like blotches on the skin. So even though he thinks he's like a god now, he looks weird and sickly.
He's starting to look like a heroin addict.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean this is purely his addict phase going on here, but the more he's just addicted to being like the best human being ever when he doesn't realize what's actually going on. He bets the guys get mad that are arm wrestling that he's like talking to Tawny here. And so he bets him $100 he can beat them in arm wrestling and take the woman home, which it's funny. She's like, hey, like, I don't have my own agency here. And she's like,
shut up, Tawny. The men are talking. The men folk are talking, Tawny.
So yeah,
I like the cautionary note in there. It's like he ate a candy bar earlier. That one.
Yeah. He says, like I'd worry about him. He's eating candy. So yeah, they say he's wrestling like the bigger guy, and so they struggle at first, but then Seth starts winning, and then he starts secreting stuff, which I don't know if this is the acid. I guess it's not. Yeah, it didn't melt the guy, but then he compound fractures the guy's arm, which I remember. This is another famous.
Basically, bone sticking through skin, like arm wrestling defeat. And Tawny is immediately turned off by this.
Turned off? Are you sure?
Well, no. I mean, she's like not attracted to those guys anymore.
Oh yeah. They're weak.
She's like, oh, those are weak men.
Yeah, because Seth takes Tawny back to his place, but then suddenly she doesn't want to walk up the stairs, so he just picks her up and runs her up the stairs. This is what I'm talking about. Where like this place really needs a freight elevator and it doesn't have it. Which I also didn't realize that this lab's on the top floor or something. That's very inconvenient.
That seems like a terrible idea to build that way, and then have this open-sided staircase you have to traverse every time.
Yeah, he had to get all that equipment up there. Um, he teleports in front of Tawny, which I don't know if this aggravates anything. He just kind of does it. I don't know if this. It's never brought up again as it did anything, so I don't know if you have any read on this, Nathan. Do you think that the second teleporting does anything new?
Well, because he's progressively getting worse, it's hard to tell. Like, oh, did this make it? Did this amplify whatever was going on?
Yeah.
But because of what happens later in the movie when he's trying to like reprogram the teleporter, I think like no, it just does the same thing unless he gets in there and like, oh, we're gonna rejigger this somehow so it can give me a different result. So this seems to be the same result.
He starts making out with her. His back wound is getting weirder and pussier and more coarse hair. We cut to the next day. Seth is antsy and wants to shove Tawny in the machine, but then Veronica shows up to stop it, which is good for her. Here, where she just says, Veronica just says, like, you look bad, you smell bad. And he's like, well, I was never a very big bather or something like that. Apparently, she had the coarse hairs analyzed, and the lab said the hairs were not human, but like more insect-like. So basically, like, yeah, basically the audience is only in on this right now. Seth punches a wall to prove he's not sick, and then kicks Veronica outside. Very 80s guys thinking,
Yeah.
Just gotta punch the wall, just to intimidate everybody. And like, see, I'm in control. Seth is looking in the mirror and he like tries to shave the hairs on his face, but like it doesn't shave it. It just, it doesn't like. I think he gets mad because it doesn't shave it, and then he just like throws the electric razor in the tub and breaks it. I thought it was kind of weird because you figure like he'd just get more hairy or something, but really he just kind of gets more melty later on. There's not really like a hairiness to his transformation. Let's see here. He ends up popping off a fingernail and some more liquid pops off. He pops off another fingernail. And at this point, where it's like the first one doesn't weird him out. He's just more fascinated by it. But when the second one happens, now he's horrified by his body. He's like, what's happening to me? And then we cut to Seth is like going over the computer and the first teleportation with him. And then like the computer finds a secondary teleportation element, which it calls it a not Brundle element. Then we get some interesting animations here of like in the visualization of the teleporter, and then a fly is revealed to having been in the teleporter with him. So here he asks the computer, it's like, if secondary element is fly, what happened to fly? And then it writes back fusion. So like at a molecular and genetic level, and so this horrifies Seth even more because he doesn't like, all right, what am I becoming? So that'll be in the end of Act 2. We got Act 3. It's been 4 weeks later, I guess.
Yeah.
Seth calls Veronica and begs her to come over and see him, even though he's afraid for her to see him because now he's progressed to something else. So she goes to his house. Seth is worse and like looking weak. He's like walking around with like 2 canes and he's got like gloves on his hands, but like gardening gloves. He tells her what happened to him. Seth is like expecting to die and like doesn't want help, but also does. So it's like he's fascinated by his own demise, but he's also like trying to ask for help, even though he's like kind of too proud to do so because this is all his own fault. He vomits on a donut and then loses a ear. And here he asks for help and he hugs her. So he's also this whole time he's like, oh, I don't want to infect you. I don't know what's going on here. And then like, touches her and walks around her all the time, breathes on her. Then we cut to Veronica goes to Stathis to try to get like Seth help. But Stathis says he wants like tape on Seth and then he'll help him out. So she's got to go get like some videotape to show how bad it is. Veronica goes back to the lab. Seth is now crawling on the ceiling. Here he's like seems fascinated by his transformation now, so he's not like all gloomy or anything. He's like, huh, wonder what. Even like he's like, hey, you see this? Like, I don't know what I guess we'll find out. he nicknames himself Brundlefly, so now he's kind of a new character, I guess. So, even though he's still he's just weird Jeff Goldblum with makeup on. So he has her document and record him eating like a fly by vomiting on his food, which actually they don't show it, but like they imply it because Stathis watches the video from his office and he's horrified by it, which is funny. But it's like, we're not gonna show that in this movie. Veronica gets back and oh, yeah, she gets back to the his office and she has news that she's pregnant with Seth's baby, so it's probably a mutant baby now. But you don't know, but so Veronica goes to have an abortion. There's extra tension during the procedure, and they ask her to like push something out, and it's a giant magnet. Maggot.
That's a weird scene.
Well, of course it is because it ends up being a nightmare sequence. So it's like, oh, okay. I mean, it wouldn't put you. Yeah, it's like that makes sense for this movie anyway. So then we cut to Seth is working on the computer. He's further mutated. He's working on a solution to like minimize his transformation, and somehow concludes that like he needs to teleport with a human to like become more human again. It's like, oh, so he's gonna kill somebody. Okay, not just baboons. This is also where they show that like Seth's voice is no longer like recognized by the computer, which doesn't stop the computer. It just switches over to manual entry mode. So it's okay. But it's just it's another little point to show like how less of himself he's becoming.
Here's where the infamous deleted scene was inserted.
Oh, this really puts the cat and the baboon because yeah, if you notice, the baboon's not in the movie anymore. So they put like a cat and a baboon. He puts them both. What does he put? He puts one in one. Puts one in one machine. Puts another one in another machine, and tries to transfer it to his original prototype machine. Try to see like what fusion can come out of it, and then it's just a weird cat mutant thing that he beats to death.
Yeah.
They said it was too much and they cut it out of the scene, but then you watch the scene and it's like it's not really more gory or weirder than anything else in the movie. So
well, I guess this was an audience testing thing because who was it? The how did that go? The
some president of
Mel Brooks was the producer.
Oh yeah.
Film. And so they had the whole completed movie and they were doing test audiences of the rough cut, and everyone like hated that scene, not because it was like the most horrifying thing in the movie, because it wasn't, but because it made him less sympathetic.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's just a brutal monster now. He's already lost his humanity. So it kind of took the punch out of what happened at the end. So that's why it was taken out. Yeah, I forgot to admit Mel Brooks. This movie is like, it's actually.
Well, I mean, deliberately stayed away from it because he didn't want people to think it was a comedy. So.
Yeah.
I mean, it does say like what, a Brooks film production up front or something like that, but
it just says Brooks Films.
Yeah.
Which they had. Oh, what was the deal with them? They'd done other stuff that wasn't comedy too.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that was that's why that scene was deleted.
I mean, it makes sense why, because then you have him. You see on the computer, he's suggesting like, "Oh, I need to teleport with a human so I can fix myself." So it's like, "Oh, you're gonna kill somebody," and then the tension is like, "Well, is he going to do that?" And so you have hope for him. So if you do the cat monkey thing, then it's like, no, he's going to do that because he's already taken the steps along the way. So.
Yeah.
So I guess it makes it more surprising at the end. It's like, why are you doing this? But yeah, I guess he's not himself anymore. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Then Veronica comes by to try and tell him something, which is basically where she's trying to tell him like, I'm pregnant with your baby. I'm gonna have an abortion, but she never tells him that. He tells her
after she sees the state that he's in, she's kind of like, well, I just wanted to say hi. Whatever's going on here.
He tells her to leave and not come back because he can't. He says like he can't promise he won't hurt her. And he talks about insect politics, which I don't know if this was written or just some Jeff Goldblum thing. He's like, insects don't have politics. I want to be the first insect politician. But he's like, and he keeps switching over. Like, insects are brutal and you can't trust them. And so, yeah, he says, if you stay, I'll probably hurt you. Uh, so yeah, she leaves. She goes outside to Stathis, demands an abortion now. Stathis wants to hold off, but she's like, and she's not explaining anything either. But then we see Seth like sees them from the roof, and apparently he heard them and saw them, and he concludes that like, oh, she's pregnant with my baby, so that
she's gonna have my maggot.
So they go to the doctor to get a midnight abortion, which this is David Cronenberg is the doctor, David Cronenberg is another one of the great med school dropout failures to turn into filmmakers. it's like him, George Miller, and
Miller didn't drop out. He was actually a practicing doctor, and he decided because he saw the people coming in from the car wrecks in Australia, as I understand it, and he was like, "Well, this is cool. I want to make a car crash movie."
Yeah, well, I'm not necessarily implying that they failed at it. They're just like, oh, I think I want to do anything, but I'm going to do this. But like, they're usually just you got to be a smart person to get into pre-med and go through that stuff anyway. So
yeah.
And Michael Crichton was one of those. I don't know. Is there any other famous like pre-med or doctors who turned into filmmakers?
I don't recall. It's probably so rare. It's unique.
Yeah.
Because that's a massive amount of hard work. Like only I think 3% of the people in the world are smart enough to do that. And just to switch gears into filmmaking seems like an interesting transition from one thing to another.
Well, I remember like Ken Jeong, he was a doctor, and he was still like, I'm not sure. He was still like practicing medicine, even though he was like in major Hollywood movies and stuff, because he just wanted to keep his license. Because he's what do they call that? He's like like an internist or like just kind of a general doctor. He's kind of like he's not necessarily like a surgeon or anything like that. He kind of like looks at you and kind of diagnoses you and sends you off to a more specialist,
like a general practitioner.
Yeah, general practitioner. So
okay, yeah. I thought he did that because he said his parents said he had to go to college and be a doctor, but then if he still wanted to be a comedian, he could after he got his and he's like, okay. So that's what I thought, because
I don't know.
Parents do that.
I know that's like famous for like Jewish families where it's like you just have to joyously become a doctor, a lawyer, or a scientist or an engineer, and if you don't do those things, you're considered a failure. I mean, a lot of families are like that, but it's something with Asian families and Jewish families that gets it seems to become a common thing when when interesting people from those backgrounds talk about it. It's like, is that every Jewish and Asian family, or is that just your Jewish and Asian family, or is that every family? I don't know. I was never really pressured to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, but it was seen as a bonus if I achieved that. But
me, I think it's more like, God, don't let him end up in prison. As long as that's not happening, everything we're good.
Let's see here. But yeah, David Cronenberg's the doctor here. They don't know how to explain the situation to the doctor because it's like every time they try to speak, it's like, nope, that's too weird. He's going to declare
got
me
impregnated by a guy who's mutating into an insect
because he jumped into his own teleporter machine.
Yeah, using 80s wonder tech.
But their fear gets through to the doctor, so he agrees to do this, and so they set her in another room, and she's about to like put on a gown as they leave, and then Seth like breaks through the window, but it's one of those like thick cube glass windows from the 80s. I don't know what kind of glass that is, but
those are called there's a name for that. What are those? The glass block windows. Yeah, okay. I think they're called just glass block windows.
I don't know if
they're still around. I think they're cool.
Okay, I don't know if that's an 80s thing. I just kind of like associate
it
with
seemed
the
to be
80s.
More, it was kind of peak popularity in the 80s.
Okay.
Because you saw them in people's houses like if you had a wall in the middle of the room, like people with really nice homes, like let's cut a square in that and put glass blocks in it or something. That was like, no one does that anymore. Those are still around. but they're more in like like you go to your doctor's office and like the break between the waiting room and the front door is like a glass block wall. But yeah, they're actually not that expensive.
Huh.
I mean, they are, but they're not. They're not like 10 times more expensive than bricks or something. They're more expensive, but not like, ooh, you got to be rich to have cubes of glass.
Well, I'm not building a whole house out of it, just this little bit. So.
Yeah.
Seth breaks through the window, takes Veronica away, and so Seth and Veronica are now on a rooftop. So she wants her. Seth wants her to have the baby because he's somehow fixated that this is the last form of himself. And it's like, yeah, he's got an ego. So yeah, what are you gonna do? So it's like, I'm dying. I need more of me around. The world needs more of me, and not this thing I'm becoming. Then we cut to Stathis walks into the lab. It's like trashed and ominous. There's food all over the place, and all the furniture's broken. Stathis gets out a hunting shotgun and like looks around for Seth. Stathis finds Seth's latest plan to like put someone in pod A, someone in pod B, and then reform in pod C. So yeah, this is basically like the cat monkey scene that got cut. I mean, not this, but that was supposed to introduce you to what this is. But in this version, like this is the first time you realize that's what's happening. Seth jumps Stathis from the wall, from the ceiling, and then he vomits on his hand and melts it. Which this is the most frightening thing about this is how like slow and deliberate this whole scene carries out.
Yeah, like a 1 minute scene almost.
He's like, yeah, let me vomit on your hand, and then like I want you to watch it and be in total pain. And then he's just gonna and then he starts reaching for the shotgun with his foot, and then he just kind of like takes half a minute to look at his foot and then vomit it off. It's like, oh, this is horrifying. And then Stathis just passes out from the pain. I guess I saw some trivia that said like he was about to vomit his face and kill him, but then that's when Veronica yells from the rooftop to stop.
Oh yeah, she does tell him to stop. Yeah, I just thought just stop the attack.
Yeah,
but okay.
Yeah, I thought it was just gonna.
You get to see a head get vomited on. Everything didn't happen in the Fly 1 happens in the Fly 2.
So. Seth wants to teleport himself, Veronica, and the baby into like one life form, which he says like will be the ultimate family. It's like, well, this is the stupidest reason. So I guess he's a monster now, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's just kind of like, well, I'm already a monster, so I might as well be like a 3-part monster.
A 3-body problem monster.
Yeah. The original 3-body problem.
So she resists and just knocks his jaw off. And then he just starts falling to pieces and revealing the man fly underneath now. So now he's completely not human anymore. The fly throws her in a pod. The sequence is already running by its own. It's just going to trigger at the end of the countdown. Stathis comes to and grabs the shotgun. The fly hops into the other pod, and Stathis just shoots the cords on Veronica's pod. So like it won't do anything. And the fly just starts breaking out of its pod, like breaking through the glass, and it tries to get out. But like in the middle of trying to get out, it gets teleported away, but like with the door.
Yeah, doesn't the computer like call it like Brundle Pod then?
Yeah, something like that. And then we see a third form emerge from the original chamber, and it's a fly. It's a fly and Brundle and Seth and all mixed with a door. It crawls out. Veronica grabs the shotgun. The fly like grabs the end of the shotgun and points it to its head and basically begs to die. And then Veronica says she can't do it, but then she blows its head off and cries and credits. Which is actually like fairly normal because how he dies in the book and in the original movie is way more fucked up. Because you have like the guy half, he's got like a fly head and a fly arm. That's the only thing that's different. And he like has her kill him with a hydraulic press.
Yeah, it's a strange Terminator style execution.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like yeah, it's straight out of Terminator, but like it starts here first. It's like this starts teleportation and killing something with a hydraulic press. And if you like hydraulic press YouTube videos, you can only imagine how terrible a death that would be.
Yeah. That's not clean or quick.
And then it gets extra fucked up because then like so that's like the more the human body part, but then they find the fly part that has like his arm and a head of well, I'm not sure what he's called in the '58 movie, but Brundle or whatever. It's caught in a spider web, and I only know this like from like oh no, I'm forgetting his name. What's the comedian Williams that killed himself?
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams. He'd always do the help me" voice, and I didn't know what that was from, but that's from the original Fly movie because he's about to get eaten by a spider, and he's screaming "help me," and like some detectives walk up and see it, and like, oh, that's fucked up, and then he kills the spider and the Brundle fly with a rock, and they're like, yeah, let's just forget that ever happened.
Yeah, we're not gonna try to explain this to anyone.
And then one of the cops, I believe, is Vincent Price. So,
Yeah.
if you don't know who Vincent Price is, he was a purveyor of shock and B horror movies in like the 50s and 60s. So.
He had a very cool way of talking
Yes.
because he was what's Vincent Price's? Wasn't he the voice in Michael Jackson's Thriller in the 80s?
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
he was basically doing the same shtick.
Yeah, I mean, like his commercials for his movies are probably better than any of his movies.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, it's
because he just like he's going to present this movie to you, and he just talks to you. And it's like this weird, like, does a man come a fly? what strange this becomes, and then like you don't even they don't even show pictures from the movie because it's probably not even shot yet, and then like it's like, oh, this is fantastic. What the hell is this movie? So. But it's also back when you're paying a nickel to watch a movie. So
yeah, and it was either that or listen to stuff on the radio. Like, hey, these moving pictures are pretty cool.
So yeah, they did have sequels to the '58 Fly, and they also had a sequel to this Fly called Fly 2, which I never seen, but Nathan says it's terrible, so I believe.
Yeah,
that.
it's actually just gross. It's
Okay.
just all it manages to be. It's like because this movie, what's cool is it starts out as a science fiction movie,
Yeah.
and then becomes gross at the end, which is like, but it's also Cronenberg, so it's like you excuse the grossness because it's like, yeah, this is what his thing is, and he's the only guy that does it, and it's this cool. The only person that even came close or exceeded him was maybe John Carpenter with The Thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of a different kind of horror. But yeah, it was but it was the same kind of genre. But yeah, this was so that's what's interesting about this movie is almost two different movies. It's like the first half is science fiction, second half is a horror movie.
Yeah.
So you
the first half is a promise of science fiction, and the second half is science fiction gone wrong, which is every science fiction story. So.
Yeah, pretty much. There's very few of them where it all works out, except for The Matrix.
Well, the Star Trek is really you get the closest because that's where it's like, that's when you come in after they figured everything out, where it's like now the future is good.
Yeah. Well, the Star Trek future is good. It's like, yeah, but if you follow that timeline from where you're at now, you don't make it. So it's not so good for us. But yeah.
And I read some like apparently they tried to reboot this like I don't know like 12 times or something.
Oh yeah, even Cronenberg was just like twice. It's like, yeah, let's redo this.
There was one that was interesting though. That was going to be a Fly 2. Where it's going to be like Gina Davis has twins, which I guess would be very Cronenberg.
Yes.
But they start like turning into the Fly, and then she like puts them through the machine and combines them together into like one kid, but like I guess more purified kid. And then she gets like put on trial for murder because now she only has one child. Which like, oh, that sounds neat, but of course, if you went through the whole production process, that probably wouldn't have come through like that. So,
yeah.
Although I don't know, this movie was pretty successful, so maybe they give him what he wants, but I guess not. So,
this movie was like filming, advertising, all in 18 million, and it made 60 million.
Yeah,
and has very, very high reviews.
Yeah, because like
This movie kind of established Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis.
yeah.
Um, so yeah,
But yeah, this is definitely a movie like you heard about it, so it's definitely one of those word of mouth movies. But like when I heard about it, it's like, oh, I don't want to watch that.
I said I remember not liking it initially until I
Yeah.
learned more about movies and stuff, and then I was like, oh wait, this is actually kind
Yeah, once you're like, oh, that's like, I wonder how they made this look like this, and it's like, oh, it's some fun plastic and goo. That's less, then you're getting out of the whole horror element of it and turning things inside out. um,
Well, it does make you think, like, if you put yourself, I mean, I guess you wouldn't have the ego or you would have that ego maybe if you were that smart. Like, if I invented machines like that, the last thing in the world I would ever do is get in it, especially after watching animals essentially explode once they go through it. It's like, I don't think I'm trying this. But then again, he had the ego to like, no, I figured it out. I'm fine. And he was also drunk, so that helps. But yeah, that's
yeah. And Star Trek always had their fun transporter malfunction episodes, so which
yeah,
did it.
like the darkest one was the motion picture.
Yeah.
Because remember that one? Like that was the first time I'd seen people die in a transporter. And
Yeah,
you don't
'cause
really
it's-
see it. They just hear
No,
about
it
it.
just screams. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
screams and light flickering. It's like, oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
Somehow the vocal cords get together enough to make noises, but not the body. um,
But yeah, then the next generation played around with transporter stuff a lot.
yeah. Yeah, they had some horror. There was one episode where was it who's the engineer who's kind of like always weird?
Barkley.
Yeah, that was a Barkley episode. That episode where he was like turning into a spider. I forget what
Yeah.
that was about. I don't think that was a transporter episode. That was just like a weird infection episode, and people like are regressing to like some are de-evolving into things because like Worf was turning into some like I don't know like bear wolf monster thing from Klingon or something.
Oh yeah, I do remember that one. I remember the Barkley one where he had transporter psychosis, is what they called it.
Oh, okay.
And it would basically end your career in Starfleet if you had transporter psychosis because that's your main way of getting around. But it turned out he didn't. There was actually some kind of interdimension, whatever world the transporter you existed in between point A to point B. There were like beings there where nobody had seen it, but for some reason Barkley saw him and he had to convince people. But because Barkley was basically was he a prototype autistic guy?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so he had to convince people because he was a good engineer, but his people skills sucked. And Jordy was always like, "I'm trying to be patient with you right now, but we have things we have to do." And then Barkley would be like, "Well," and it's like, "Okay, have some confidence, would you?" And then Picard always scared him to the point he couldn't talk because Picard would be like, "Tell me what you want," and he'd be like, and not like Picard was hitting him or anything, but he just couldn't deal with him. So yeah. But yeah, I remember that was a transporter episode with Barkley.
And then Riker has his twin that gets end up in Star Trek. That was another fun.
Is that Bill Riker?
Yeah, something like
He
that.
joins the Maquis
Yeah,
to fight against the. Who are they fighting against? The
Cardassians or somebody else?
Kardashians. Yeah.
Asians, right? Not Ashian, not the Kardashians. not
Cardassians. Yeah, how do you say it?
Yeah, it's Cardassians.
Yeah, because they were space Nazis.
Yeah.
They essentially were like designed after. It's like, oh, they took over Bajor and they exterminated them in camps, and they're very uptight people and they're good bureaucrats. So they were like, oh, space Nazis, great, right? And then they got annihilated basically wiped out in the Dominion Wars.
Yeah.
And the Taylor on DS9 had to rebuild, who was also a spy, Garrick. He became the leader of what the Cardassian remnant, I guess, because their planet got like destroyed by the Federation, the Klingons, the Romulans, and then later the Dominion. So like because they changed sides halfway through or something. And it's like, yeah, the Klingons and the Federation wiped out Cardassia. Then you find out like the horrible backstory of why they are what they are, and it's like, oh, it makes sense why they became that because their planet was very resource poor and they were very poor, but they had a lot of people on the planet. So when they ventured into space, they were just like, we're claiming all this for us. That's why the Cardassians were the way they were. Not the Kardashians.
I
They're
mean, the
just
Kardashians are that way too. Yeah, they just spread out
yes.
and need everything. So.
They're from the planet Armenia. Actually, I don't think I know any Armenians. I'm sure they're fine people. Actually, the Kardashians
Bob?
are vaguely
From Bob
interesting
and Tom?
to me.
I think.
Oh, is
or
he
no,
Armenian?
Tom. Yeah, one of them are Armenian.
I should
Because
always-
they're always because the Armenian genocide gets brought up every once in a while on a blue moon, and one of them would have to be like, I'm Armenian. It's like, oh, so
But now, actually, back to the Kardashians, they actually seem like vaguely interesting people. Like they definitely made a lot of money for themselves. I respect their like, I'm going to be famous. How? Because I want to be. It's like that's kind of cool. You did it. So, interesting.
not people accidentally intentionally release their porn video and now get to have like a makeup line and make billions of dollars.
And talk to the president of the United States and get people off death row that were not supposed to. They're like, that's pretty I mean, it was Donald Trump, okay, but still, he was the president at the time, and she got to talk to him. And also, I think she can practice law now. Didn't she like pass the bar exam or something?
I don't know. Is that what was it? You or someone else that was saying that the New Orleans is the easiest place to pass the law at?
Well, I think there's some states you can just pass the bar exam and you can get a license to practice law. You don't have to go to law school. But if you're smart enough to pass the bar exam, you can practice law, but not in every state.
Oh no, some other podcasts I listened to because they were talking. I think they were talking about was that Frank Abagnale, the guy that the movie Catch Me If You Can is based on, but it's all a lie. So it's like double lie.
A lie within a lie within a lie. It's
and I guess he's
nesting doll of lies.
And so I guess he is like licensed to practice law in like New Orleans or I guess in Louisiana. And then the person on the podcast, their dad is a lawyer, and they said that is the easiest place in the world to pass the bar, because I guess the way they do law is, I guess it has more like French sensibilities to it, and so
they have the Napoleonic codes versus the English common law.
Yeah, and so
I'm
it's
guessing, I don't know,
something like that. It's just easier and a bit more less refined.
Somehow when I think of Louisiana, I don't think of like stiff regulatory apparatuses existing there. I think they've had a bar that's been open there since like the 1700s, never closed. It's like, yeah, they seem to kind of do their own thing.
Because maybe they're talking about like French law, how it was different, but it was like like you see law dramas and how everything is very strictly organized, and you have to ask the honor to approach the bench and stuff like that. And I guess in France, or at least some European country, like you can just antagonize the witness can antagonize you. Like you can't impinge on people's freedom with structure.
That sounds very French. You, ma'am, are a whore, and I can prove it. I bring all these men in, and there's like a whole witness gallery. You slept with them all, and they've all given me a statement. Therefore, we can't trust you, because what kind of harlot would tell the truth? And it would be like, yeah, this is actually, the judge is like, here, this makes good sense. That sounds like something the French would do, and be like, yeah, this is cool. Actually, this works. And it works in the French way. But yeah, I think they do have a different like legalistic interpretation there because everything we do is based on British stuff.
Yeah, except without the wig stuff.
Except they do the wigs in Canada still.
Yeah.
So I think the judge does. I don't know if the lawyers do, because they call it the crown instead of because here it's like the state versus, and there they'll say it's the crown versus, but it means the state.
I saw this one video. Those guys explaining like all the deeper meanings of a court case. It's all entire bullshit, but it's like fascinating. It's like he's talking about passing the bar, and it's like, see, this is a bar. That's that little door that swings open, and like so that's passing the bar, and like, and then something about being dead, and it's based on like ship law and stuff like that, and it's all garbage. But like for a moment, you're like, is that real? It's like no.
Yeah, from what I've studied of it, and I've read
quite a few books because I've always found it fascinating. Just explains it to like common people like me. But when I read a lot of those things and I find out like the origins and stuff, it's like, this is like religious ceremony. This is more, it's like, yes, it still has a place and we still use laws. We have to, because otherwise it'd be chaos. But yeah, some of the traditions and stuff of courts, it's like, it's almost like going and receiving communion. It's like, this is just a ritual we're going to have. There might be an outcome here that might be a surprise, but 99% of the time now it's he who has the most money wins, which the British courts are even worse for that than the American courts are, because they still have a class system over there where it's like poor people suing wealthy people. I think not. That's not
You'll
allowed.
not impede the wheels of capitalism.
Yeah.
Grind your bones with the gears of capitalism. Well, we're sending a probe into space containing a supercut of scenes from the imperfect collection that is the Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what scene from The Fly are we chucking into space?
Oh, we got to do the one where he teleports himself because it establishes the whole movie.
Okay. Good fog.
Yeah, there was
a lot of fog in the 80s. This is some really good fog.
Yeah, this was like very detailed fog, I guess. It seemed like a high quality fog.
Yeah.
Like they weren't just using dry ice. It had more substance than that.
Yeah, I mean they had to hide nudity and they did it well with fog.
That's why I get out of the shower and walk into my living room. Like I'm not naked if you're not looking.
You can find us at Letterboxd with the username VHE. 1 out of 5 stars. What are we giving The Fly?
I'm gonna give The Fly 4.
Okay.
And the reason I deduct 1 is because it's almost 2 different movies, which is a little jarring, and it also seems like too quick. Yeah. It's like I really wish. I mean, I don't want to see the cat dog or cat baboon scene, but I really wish there could have been a little more story here.
Yeah.
A little more insight into what he was, besides like it seemed like I'm kind of weird, I'm a monster. It's like, can we have like an interstitial thing there of what's going on? I wish the tech would be a little more explained. Like a guy smart enough to build this wouldn't he obviously understand certain ramifications that maybe the audience wasn't thinking of, but he didn't seem to understand any ramifications of it. It's like, I'm just gonna reprogram it. We're good to go. Jump in this thing and fly.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's the 30 minutes of the movie they cut before they just meet each other at the conference. They just leave that out of the movie. So.
Yeah. Would have been a little better for character development, but as far as like the main characters and stuff, best chemistry ever. Then I find out, they got married and they were dating. What happens? Like, well, that makes sense. As far as direction and everything, I mean, Cronenberg films are always like a solid 4 for me.
Yeah,
I'm not super into it, but I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I wouldn't necessarily say it affects the ratings, but it's not a movie you want to watch a lot. Which is like, it maybe means like, it's very effective, but it kind of it kind of like puts you down a star, where it's just like, you know what, that's a really good movie. I never want to watch it again. 4
Had
stars.
The experience, yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of dramas, but yeah.
It's just like Dom Perignon. I had it once. $400 a bottle. I had a glass. I didn't pay $400 for it. I had a glass, and it's like, wow, this tastes like champagne. Cool. I can say I've done this. Don't need to do it again and again and again. It's expensive.
Or I always have my Cadbury egg analogy, where it's like I have one Cadbury egg. It's Easter time and they're putting it out. It's Peeps and Cadbury eggs. And I eat 1, it's like, this is delicious. And I eat 2, and it's like, this is horrible.
I'm kind of like that with they have something at Tim Hortons here. It's a seasonal thing, but it's some kind of donut with a cream in it that feels like somehow they got a pound of sugar cream in the center. I mean, literally, I'll eat it, and I'll feel like briefly high. And I know I'm not supposed to eat things like that ever, but I do it once a year because it only comes out at a certain time. But it's like, why do I feel like a stone just for like 5 minutes? And then I'm just back to 0. But it's like, But yeah, you don't have to. if you consume this all the time, you would become a weirdo.
As Seth can attest to in this movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't the fly that turned him into the fly. It was all the sugary food.
Yeah. It's a metaphor for the diabetes in America.
Well, you can find us on the internet at verhoeveneffect.com. There we have listener support. You can support us at a monthly stipend of either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. Cancel anytime. You can rate our podcast on whatever platform of your choice. You can rate us whatever you want, but the algorithm always listens to the highest rating. Remember, you control the algorithm doesn't control you. You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us at Blue Sky Social at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory and watch both this and that show live and unedited, where everything new is in the live section. So just look there for that. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.